Hello, and welcome to the Professor Podcast with Ruth and Claire. Each episode, we talk about a particular topic in the life of a professor. We are tenure-track faculty members in the sciences, working at a primarily undergraduate university in California. The purpose of our podcast is reflection, so we bring something we think is working and something we're working on to discuss.
Hi, and welcome to the Professor Podcast with Ruth and Claire. I'm Ruth.
And I'm Claire.
And today we're going to talk about adapting to everything that's going on. But before we do, Claire, do you want to tell us about how your week has gone?
Sure. So, in the category of adapting, we're, of course, doing a lot of adapting to online everything, personal and professional. And one of the things that I just wanted to mention on the fun side is I don't think I've mentioned on this podcast before that Ralph and I are in a band, several bands. And so we're switching around to see how we can do music things online. And so we've done a couple fun things, like we recorded our rehearsal and did a live stream of that on Instagram, which was fun. And we're trying to do some fun music video based in Zoom, which trying to do some fun things, you know?
That's super cool. And just for the listeners, I have been present when Claire reveals to our students that she is in a band, and it always gets big. Super impressed. Just said that's super cool. And sometimes they go to her gigs, which is even cooler.
They do. Mm-hmm. That's really fun.
That is always very cool.
All right. What about you?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I don't know quite how I'm doing. I think every time I have the delusion that I'm getting my feet under me, I feel like something else comes up, and
totally.
I have like no mental flexibility. Like I keep having the really stupid, unhelpful thought of, okay, as long as nothing else happens, I'm going to be okay. And then like immediately something else happens. And
right.
So yeah, it's hard to sort of manage, because I guess I have said on the podcast before, I have two kids who are 5 and 7, and we're doing a lot of pretend homeschool stuff. And so even today, both of them had Zoom meetings with their teachers. Mm-hmm. And my husband had a meeting, and I was like, oh my God, we're maxing out the Wi-Fi. And so, somehow it all worked out. But it feels like that shouldn't be the most difficult thing to manage, but apparently today it was. It was like pushing me right over the edge. Yeah. So are you going to give us our quote today?
I will. So do you read fantasy at all?
So I do and I don't. So I think I'm actually stress reading Lord of the Rings right now, because that's basically all I can cope with.
Choice.
Yeah, and I feel like we're on the march to Mordor at the moment. So that's what my friend texted me and was like, oh my God, we need to get to Helm's Deep. And I was like, yes. That is very true. But but my husband loves fantasy books, and there's a lot of very dramatic books with dragons and swords and things on them. So yes.
Excellent. Well, so
I would need it curated for me, is what I think.
Totally. It's such a broad category. So yes, our quote is from Brandon Sanderson, who teaches at, gosh, I forget where he teaches at. Let me add this in later. That he teaches at, Brigham Young University.
Okay,
Brandon Sanderson teaches at Brigham Young University. And this is a quote that was in one of his books. And it says, "A man can only lead when others accept him as their leader. And he has only as much authority as his subjects give to him. All of the brilliant ideas in the world cannot save your kingdom if no one will listen to them."
Dude, and that is getting me right in my feelings, because as we know, I have a major fear of not being taken seriously.
Totally.
But that's the way it is, right?
Right. So yeah, of course, this is obviously in the context of a fantasy world, but the idea of having buy-in from your students is something I definitely want to have an episode on at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's a mysterious, geez, this can be a rough podcast, sorry. It's just words are a bit much, but it's a mysterious concept, getting the buy-in. Like, it's very ethereal, like, what is the thing?
Totally. And there's definitely, a time where I say, oh gosh, I'm doing this lecture that went great last year, so I'll totally have the buy-in this year, but then I think I took it for granted and didn't do whatever I needed to do to get the buy-in, So it's definitely an art form.
Yeah, and I feel like as scientists we're really uncomfortable with art forms. Like we want it to be like, no, if I put this in the equation, this will come out. So yeah.
Totally.
Okay, so we are adapting to the ever-changing situation that we're in.
Yeah, and so as most teachers are right now, we have just adapted as much as we could really quickly to online learning. And so we suddenly have everything online. This is our first full week online. And so yeah, where are you at with that right now, Ruth?
I felt so much dread about last week. So we had a situation where we had spring break and then we got 3 days to prepare. And thanks to my very good friend Claire, who gave me good advice, you told me about this room that we could record in on campus. And that was humongous for me because...
Me too.
I realized the kids' schools were going to close and that it just wasn't going to be an option for me to record lectures a lot at home. So, and I don't know this bit of context, but my husband works as a communications person for the health clinics. And so his workload has just multiplied by 100 over the last couple of weeks. So it definitely was not going to be a day-to-day thing for me recording. So the first 2 days of spring break, I went in and recorded like 4 lectures on the first day and 2 on the second day. And I made a lot of stupid jokes about how I wasn't changing my clothes and that they must think I'm like wearing the same clothes for 4 weeks or something. But so that was really cool to get that done. But I was just dreading the first Zoom meeting because I did talk to the students before spring break about what was going to happen. And of course they're processing stuff. So they're just like, this isn't going to work and I don't like this and this is going to be terrible. And so that was the last interaction I had with them. And I was like, oh God, this is going to be so rough. And it actually wasn't. And they were super, like they're troopers. They're total champs. But it's just, I was dreading that first meeting so bad.
Totally.
And it's so hard because like I can't even visualize what it's going to be like. And even now I'm feeling nervous about meeting them on Wednesday because it's just totally uncharted territory.
So what's your strategy? How are you handling your meetings with them?
So I have been doing, so normally in the old world that we used to live in, I used to have 2 lectures a week.
Okay.
And I had 1 activity and 1 lab.
Right.
And so now I'm putting up 2 lectures a week that are not 50 minutes because I don't normally talk for that long.
Right.
And I cannot believe the awkwardness of recording yourself, talking to yourself and asking yourself questions and then forgetting, and just it's not smooth. But then I'm having like 90-minute Zoom meetings. I mean, I say I'm having, but I've had 1, but I will have like 2 90-minute Zoom meetings to work through problems with them. And last time I did the breakout rooms
on Zoom.
Mm-hmm. And
interesting. I haven't used those yet. How did that go?
It was really good. And again, because I had this luxury of having a very small class, so I just put them in groups of the tables they used to sit on.
Oh, that's great.
So that was really cool. And
maybe I should do that. Breakouts.
Yeah, it's not super, I mean, as you know, I'm old and can't use technology, but it was not that awful to set it up.
Okay. Great.
In the thing. And so I kind of lurked around, much like I did in the classroom, where I just make them uncomfortable by standing behind them until they ask for help. So I kind of lurked around.
You appear in one room.
Yeah, I just kept popping in and they were like, yeah, we're fine. You can go. So, but
oh, that sounds great. I gotta do this.
Yeah, it was cool. And the first day we didn't do a lot except they had a homework due. So I just let them work together on it.
Right.
And they were good. They were really like helping each other. And I think the biggest adaptation is, I'm like questioning, I'm like, is that the grammar? But anyway, adapting or adaptation. Like I felt like the first conversations we were having about this when it started to come up were so bananas, where people were insisting on getting the same amount of content.
Oh.
And so,
students were?
No, like on the faculty side.
Oh,
and so
okay.
Just that kind of, you know, how are we going to do a 3-hour lab every week? And it's like, we're not. That's how we're going to do it. We're going to. So I think part of my adaptation is like lowering, like completely revising expectations.
Totally.
And having like what are the, 5 things that you absolutely want them to know?
Yeah. I think that is really helpful. I heard someone say something like, the goal is to think about, the couple things that you really want them to actually get out of this class, and then try to do those things.
Yeah, and there's someone who hopefully we might interview someday who is a chair in geology on our campus, and I just had a really nice conversation with him in a separate meeting, but he was like, if you just meet with them and chat and like give them some structure and some sense of community and continuity, that is like your main job. Like there's kind of the overt is like, yes, we're doing physics, but also really just kind of keeping some connection going. And that was great. Like the most reassuring conversation I've had about this, because and then the other thing, I think the other thing that has worked, someone else in our department made a survey, and because I have such a few number of students, I just sent the email asking them, like, how are you feeling about coming back? Are you still going to be able to make
That's nice.
certain times? Like, how has your situation changed? Is this like a welcome distraction? And I was kind of blown away by how many of them are having very real impacts already. But also we're actually kind of into coming back.
Well, we all want some normalcy coming back, so I can see that, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, because I was just, like, some people were sharing that their family financial situations have completely tanked, and other people have relatives who already have, are already sick, and so I was just like, oh my God, the last thing these kids want is to come back to school, but they actually were like, no, I can't wait to.
Well, that's good to hear. I love your idea of asking them all that. That's a nice idea.
I mean, I'm saying it's my idea, but it wasn't. It's one of my many ideas I stole. But yeah, and this other person made a survey and sent it out, and I think students, she got feedback from them that they were really appreciated being asked.
That's great.
So they were into that. So yeah. What about you? What's been working well for you in adapting to?
Yeah, so I wanted to be sure that I had some, I'd been sending out emails to my students, here's the plan, and our university had advised us to be as asynchronous as possible and to make it as possible, as doable as possible for students to not be on this, not have to be somewhere at a certain time.
Yeah.
So I was sending out emails describing how everything was going to go, and I wasn't really getting any responses, understandably. They didn't need to respond, but so I really wanted early on to get some kind of, how are you back and ready to do school again from each one of the students. So if I'd thought or heard of your cool email thing, I would have done that. But instead what I did, and this has worked really well, is I had an assignment due early, and I have made all deadlines soft. And so I said, if you can't make the deadline, no problem, just let me know, full credit, not a problem. So in that way, they either turned in the assignment, in which case, okay, great, they were getting my emails and they were moving along, or they replied and said, hey, I can't do it, and then I said, no problem. So I heard back from almost everybody pretty quickly, and then at that point I was able to target the people I hadn't heard from and send a particular email, hey, and I tried to just say, are you ready to come back and do this again? And if not, that's fine, we'll work something out, but checking in kind of thing. So that kind of helped me hone in on who I needed to check in on.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that worked well. And I also like the idea of having so I have it set in Canvas right now that there's due dates, but then every assignment is open for another week and they don't lose any points handing it in late. So nice. Hopefully they have flexibility, but we still have the structure is kind of what I'm hoping for.
Right, because again, this is from, I don't know why I keep calling it the old world or whatever, but previous time, but I've had students who have professors with very soft deadlines for homework, like totally soft, and it really stresses them out because things really pile up. And,
right, totally.
I think, and obviously we like being super flexible now, but I think some kind of rhythm to things is super important.
Yeah, so I'm trying to say, like, this is the normal lab time, and so that would be the default time for you to do this lab work, but you can really do it whenever you want to. But that's at least the structure. Yeah, so yeah, I agree with you, because we all need some structure now.
Oh, dude, I mean, I kind of keep flip-flopping between feeling incredibly sorry for myself and then incredibly grateful for various things. And one thing at the moment, I'm a big wallower. Do you know what I mean? So like that person who's in their pajamas and hasn't gotten dressed in 3 weeks, like that would be me. But the kids, there's no option for that. Do you know what I mean? And we're still getting up at the same 6:30 every day, and not by choice, but because that's when they get up. But you know, and we have to go out and do PE or whatever they're calling it. And so that is really helping me.
So you're rallying yourself because you need to for these reasons, and then that's actually helpful.
Yes, and I was surprised at how much I enjoyed the Zoom meeting, because it was the longest I went without looking up some terrible statistics on my phone. So that's good. That was a good thing for sure.
I had a couple just things I ran into recently that seemed helpful that I just wanted to share.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Which I just learned today, that Canvas allows you to make different due dates for different individuals for an assignment.
No way.
Yes. Which was very helpful for me, because I have different groups that rotate through different assignments, but they aren't officially groups on Canvas. So I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do that. But you can, again, I have a small class, so it was doable, but I could say for this assignment, so-and-so has it due on this day, and so-and-so has it due on this day. And then it, shows up on their calendar of due dates on Canvas.
Wow, that is very cool.
Pretty cool. And another thing I learned, I had a little pile of assignments that they had handed in before break physically that now I couldn't hand back to them physically. And
I actually have that sitting in my bag right now.
Totally. Yeah, so then I scanned those, and then I had electronic versions, and I almost emailed them back to them, but then I thought, I wonder if there's a way to do it on Canvas. And actually I did email one person, and then after I emailed it, I said, hold on, let me figure out if this is doable on Canvas. And it totally is. If you go to the assignment, and then you have to add a comment, you have to go into SpeedGrader. SpeedGrader is the part that I couldn't find at first. You go to the assignment, you go to SpeedGrader, and then you have to add a comment. And when you're adding a comment, you can attach a file. And then I just would send them an email and say, hey, I turned it back on Canvas. Let me know if you can't find it. But I thought that would be helpful, because then it's not just another of the 51 million emails that they're getting, and it's in, a designated spot on Canvas. So anyway, I found that to be helpful.
That's really cool. Because, I have all these quizzes from the last day sitting there, and it is really helpful for them to get those back. That is very cool.
Yeah, so I was excited about that. And then a couple other things I've been trying to prioritize student emails. Like, whatever else is happening, well, within limitation. If a student emails me with a question, I try to prioritize that, so that they still can have some quick feedback,
Yeah.
But that's balanced with, I also think it's really important for me to keep regular hours. And so I'm trying to, even though it's still, I'm always just in my house, I'm trying to have the working day and the not working day. And so in the not working day, I'm much slower at responding to emails. But in the working day, I try to be really quick. So I don't know. That's my strategy right now for adapting. I
told them I have these email office hours where I'm like, if you email me during these times, you'll get an immediate reply. But if you email me any other time, it could take, I'll try and do it as quick as possible. But if you do it in these times, you're guaranteed an immediate reply.
That's cool. I like that.
But that is super cool information about Canvas. And I think, the big thing for me was figuring out the breakout rooms on Zoom.
I had not figured that out. I'm excited about that.
And then also someone had to explain to me how to do the recording. Because then, like you said, if people can't show up to things, I don't want them to miss out on them. So I'm going to record those Zoom meetings.
Great.
And put them up. Yeah.
That's awesome. So one of the things I was wondering about that I'd like to hear your thoughts on is whether or not to lecture live. So one option would be to do a lecture when everyone's listening, and if they can't come, you record it and post it later, and you go through all your stuff and you have questions as you're going through. So that's one option. Another option is the one that you and I have already started doing, which is pre-recording lectures and then talking about the content at some other time. So have you thought about lecturing live or what? And again, our university has suggested we do as asynchronously as possible, so that's a good reason to do pre-recorded lectures. But I think we could do live lectures, and if you can't make it, you still can see the lecture afterwards, and it might even be better because it's got more interaction. I don't know. So what do you think about that?
I don't know. That is a really good point, because like the thing I think the students have already said they like is being able to play the lecture back and go over bits.
Oh,
but
good.
that would be possible if you did it synchronously, right? And you just recorded it. So I don't know, because that's the thing, like, it's so awkward doing the lecture, and it's so, you're just missing out on any of those questions and things.
Right.
And so, like, I have been doing in the Zoom meeting, well, I've been doing one time in the Zoom meeting, like the first 20 minutes were them writing down, I told them to write down all the questions when they watch the video.
Yes, me too.
And then, but then, I mean, the thing I've been kind of wondering about, sorry, I'm just crossing over into your thing, but like, what do you do if they just obviously have not watched the video? Do you know what I mean? And like, if you did, is that could be something that you could survey the students about? Like, you could maybe, like, are other professors doing it? Is this something that you enjoy?
Right.
Or
one thing I was thinking of doing is, after we give it a shot, the current system, and we're all kind of used to it, and they're used to everyone else's, all their other classes' systems, then maybe doing a survey and saying, like, is anyone doing something in a different class that you think would be awesome in this class? Or, would you prefer the lectures be live? Or I don't know, something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what is your kind of pros for it? Is it just having the questions live? So today was the first day where we had I'm calling them Q&A sessions. We meet at the regular lecture time, but they've already watched the pre-recorded lecture, and at that time we talk about any questions they have, and I remind them many times during the pre-recorded lecture to, write down their questions. And I also brought a few questions to, like, get the discussion going, kind of thing. And so it went totally fine, and I'm sure it would get better as we all figure out what we're doing a little more. One of the students did ask if I was going to do it live eventually, and I was saying that's something we can talk about. I don't know. So, I guess I'm not sure. I mean, one thing that I like is, well, I guess it'd be nice to have the interaction. Like, in class, normally, if somebody has a question, that really informs me on whether they're getting it. Or, of course, it's just one person, but it, and then if other people are nodding, or, it's so missing out on that back and forth, I think could mean that I'm not describing things as well as I could, because I don't realize that I didn't say it well the first time, So that could be a pro of doing it live. And that's the thing, because, like, if you say it in a way that they didn't get, like, they could watch that 50 times, right, and it's not going to, so that's a really good point. And I did whatever I was doing, I was definitely doing it at warp speed. Like, because normally, I feel like I didn't know how responsive I am to their faces, but... Right. So I guess the only cons I would imagine is, like how would you actually convey the information on Zoom? Right. Yeah, it's not going to be as smooth, for sure. Which, I mean, maybe that's okay, but it's like, will you still be able to pay attention to them nodding and smiling? Right, or is that's exactly a good point. And also, what if they have, like, a momentary internet issue and then they miss a chunk? If that happened when they're watching a pre-recorded lecture, no problem. They just stop and continue on. But if they're only getting parts of it during a live lecture, I mean, at that point they might as well stop and watch the post one, which is fine, too. Yeah, so I there's pros and cons to both, I think. Yeah. I guess the other, I'm just like raining on your parade, but I guess the other con is, like, it sounds like people are having very mixed situations in terms of Zoom. And so if it got kind of really jammed up, I mean, I don't know, would that affect your recording? Like, could it be they would get to watch it later on, or could it impact your recording too? On one of my pre-recorded lectures, there was a little moment where it got garbled in the actual recording. Okay. But it was a short moment. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think I can definitely imagine, like, if so one thing today I just collected
from our college, they bought these like writing tablet things.
Uh-huh.
I'm showing you because we're on Zoom, but like I'm brandishing this writing tablet. So I'm kind of, because I have been like sort of miming things with this tiny whiteboard and holding it up. But I'm super excited about the tablet because there is a thing in Zoom where you can press whiteboard.
Oh, yes.
And
what
then,
a good trick.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you have one of those?
I have a tablet, which I have not yet figured out how to connect to Zoom, but I've also seen the whiteboard on Zoom. So yeah, that should be doable.
Yeah, I think there's some more left with our dean.
Cool.
But anyway, yeah, so I don't know. I can imagine things getting much more fluid. I hope things will get much more fluid.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would definitely, I could well imagine doing a live lecture.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard of other people doing that for sure. And I think... You go.
Well, one of the things that I was really missing today in the discussion was I like to say, here's a thought, chat with your neighbors about it.
Yeah,
then let's get back together. And so, they do get to think about it themselves, but they don't get to chat with their neighbors and describe it to each other. And that seems really valuable, which I could maybe get around with the breakouts in Zoom, either live or not live. But, yeah.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the emails we've been getting about keeping things asynchronous if possible, I think that's really true. I think that's one thing you could check in with your students about in that survey.
Yes.
Like, are you able to attend at such and such a time? And then I think, like, if you were a jerk and you were like, well, this is the only time this lecture is ever available to you, good luck with your life. Like, that would be really obnoxious. But if you're absolutely going to offer the recording too.
Totally.
I think maybe you would have to rethink it if, like, 3 people could never be at that time.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But...
And if I was watching a pre-recorded lecture, I might prefer if there were people asking questions, That might be...
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Now you've kind of, like, put that in my head, too. For sure.
Well,
and I think... Yeah, because I recorded all these lectures and it was really... like in this kind of frantic way,
right?
To be like, oh my god, I have to get as much kind of money in the bank before the kids are fully home. And
totally.
But so I realized, like, normally I would do a review for the midterm. I was like, I didn't do that, so I will definitely need to do that in some way.
Sure. Interesting.
So yeah,
a review could be really great on Zoom. Do you know they have polls on Zoom? And you can, like, write questions and have people respond to the question. It has to be, like, you have to give them answers, but that could work with calculations. So I don't know, that could be fun in review.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to play around with that. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then that's bringing in some of the active learning stuff again.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, we do a lot of those voting questions.
Uh-huh, totally.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, will I tell you what I'm working on?
Yeah.
I think, well, one last thing that I think is sort of working well.
Okay.
And, like, it's just like in part of the discussions about all this, it's been like, oh my god, but what about the next class in the sequence, and what will happen if we haven't covered all of these things? And because we are in California, we had this blackout situation. Right. Or like the power outages last semester. Mm-hmm. And so we had days where, like, the university was closed, and that's kind of had an impact in this semester. But I was thinking about, like, I was getting really uptight about that. And then, like, we've all taught classes before where the instructor who taught before, or, like, if they've come from somewhere else, they did not have a good grasp on the material.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? And so it's not...
Yeah. Like, even if they all took the same classes, they would have different levels of grasp of the material,
Oh, totally. And so I think... I kind of let go of some of that expectation. But the things that I'm really working on is my stress and anxiety in all of this, which is pretty bad. And I think I find it hard, like, to access being a grown-up in this. Do you know what I mean? Like, not like I know I'm an actual adult, but, like, being the person in charge who's supposed to be like, yes, I have an exact plan for how this is all going to go, and don't worry, I know exactly what I'm doing. And that I'm really, like, I'm definitely pretending that I do, and, like, trying to be this calm, like, yes, everything's going to be fine, and don't worry, I know exactly. But I don't. I have no clue of I am going to be doing. But yeah, so it's really hard to kind of like, and this didn't happen, but in terms of having students kind of grumbling or saying, like, no one can give me this because we're in totally uncharted territory, but just some, you know, the way when you have, this is your WTUs or this is your workload, this means you should be spending X amount of time in the classroom and X amount of time doing, you know, and it's really structured. And now when I talk to people, like, people are doing such wildly different things.
Right, because we all are inventing it ourselves. And so, yeah, totally, of course, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, what are your expectations for yourself? That is a tough thing. Right,
and so, like, you know, if students said to you, like, in previous time, like, well, why don't you have 12 office hours a week? And you could say, well, in our college, the standard is blah, blah, blah. And,
right.
you know, you kind of have this sort of structure behind it. And now, and it hasn't come up yet, but now it feels really like it's hard to sort of explain to them why things are the way they are.
Right, totally.
You know, and they haven't said anything to me, but I was like, what if someone is mad because they're not getting 50 minutes of content in the lectures, or like, you know.
Sure.
So I feel like I don't have that kind of structure to lean back on. Like, well, this is how everybody does it, and that's because who knows how everybody does it. So that's definitely difficult.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. One piece of comfort I've taken, there was this great video that a professor from Bates College made that I'll have to link in the liner notes. And it was he made a trailer for his class, for it becoming online.
Awesome.
And it involved him saying, you know, a professor has no idea what he's doing. And I mean, the fact that he would put that on the trailer and that it became... I mean, everybody's relating to it, you know, because none of us were, this is new for all of us. You know, I mean, of course, some people have taught online classes before, but a ton of us have not. So we're not alone, I guess, is part of it.
Right. And I think, and also, like, from my experience of actually interacting with students, it's also new for them too. Like, they're quite understanding of, you know, I had a few students saying, well, like, at least, I mean, it's worse for the faculty because they're doing, you know, which isn't really, you know, they're obviously also experiencing so much stress and upheaval.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and the other thing that I'm kind of freaking out about is, well, it's all related to the same stress, but it's really hard to not have your mind travel down the road.
Sure.
You know, and trying to stay right here, but we are coming up to our advising time and meeting with students. And again, I'm hoping to just be smiling and like, yes, everything's going to be fine. But who knows? Like, are we going to be starting our classes in the fall? Like, it's pointless because we can't know, but my mind keeps running down the road into the future.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so one other thought, just to go back for a second on the student expectations. I've been trying to take the stance of, you know, this is the best way I could come up with. This is the way that I decided to do it. And I have reasons, of course. We've, of course, both thought about how we wanted to do it. And I want to give it a shot before we start changing things. But I am very open to suggestions after a certain point. Like, no suggestions right now. We're just going to give it a real shot. So I tried to be explicit with my students about that so that, you know, because it is new, but I don't want to come in with a, I want to tell them that I've thought about it, and this is why I thought this was a good idea, this is what we're doing. So I you know, I'm not making it super long, but I'm saying, trying to balance all these things. I'm trying to explain in simple way, this is what we're doing, and try to make it clear that I'm being intentional about it, but also make it clear that I'm open to suggestions for changing it after some point. So I don't know, that's kind of how I am trying to feel better about the fact that I don't actually know what I'm doing, you know?
That's perfect, though. And I think that's something that students are really responsive to. And I think, like, I mean, obviously the final product matters, but when they know that you are actually thinking about something, it's really a huge thing for them.
Yeah, I think it helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as the future's uncertain, I know. I mean, I'm definitely thinking about my fall class and, like, is it possible to do that one online? Let me think about that. But we'll have the summer to figure that out, I guess.
Yeah. Interesting times.
Interesting times.
Yeah. It's just, and it's like, it's sort of funny, not funny. No, this is funny, but when you even think about adapting, it's like, okay, and now I'm going to adapt, but it just keeps changing. Because,
right.
you know, when we first stopped, it was like we thought we were going to be allowed back on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a lot of people, they were like, okay, well, at least I can like film
in my normal classroom.
You know, yeah. And then it's just like, okay, we're not allowed to do that anymore. And then it just keeps evolving.
Right. So it's adapting to continually adapting, I guess.
Yes. Getting comfortable with constant adaptation. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Claire. This has actually been really helpful for me in terms of processing some of this stuff.
Me too. It's nice to think about it and bounce ideas.
And honestly, when I first said this, I was like, but what are we going to talk about? Because we don't know what we're doing. But then actually there is stuff to talk about for sure.
Yeah, totally. We can have another one once we feel confident about the things that are going well.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks a million. And thanks, Ralph, for setting us up remotely.
Thanks, Ralph.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Professor Podcast with Ruth and Claire. We're delighted to have you as a listener, and we would love to hear from you. And if you want to email us, our address is contactprofessorpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear any of your suggestions for future shows or professor quotes that you might want to share with us, or even just things that have come up for you when you were listening to previous episodes. And if you've been enjoying the podcast, we would love if you would spread the word. So the best way to spread word is by telling people you know if you think they should listen to it, or you can leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.